Uniqueness is your superpower. After a successful but unfulfilling career in tech, I set off to uncover what makes people successful and satisfied. I discovered the systems of astrology and human design, studied and applied them for years, and exchanged my 9 to 5 for the entrepreneur's adventure. Now I share insight from the cosmic cutting edge. This podcast is for ambitious people ready to use their unique genius to create wealth, positive impact, and personal fulfillment. We'll talk personal branding, business, and leadership. Time to be courageous and seen. Let's reach for the stars. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cosmic Queen podcast. We have a very special guest in the house today, and I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation. I was saying earlier that I want this conversation to be like you all kind of feel like you get to be a fly on the wall and also just kind of participating in your head as we talk about some very deep but very intriguing and useful topics. So I think as a whole, we're going to focus around the planet Venus, but we're going to go off piste. Both of us, Deidre and I, both have strong Gemini placements. And so, it's going to be fun. It's going to be informative. It's going to make you think, and we're going to go all over the place. So, so tune in. I can't wait to get into Venus, confidence, body confidence, sensuality, embodying your inner sensual like woman. Like there's so many different topics that we like to key on Instagram. So we're going to bring that now to you. And we are both astrologers. So there's going to be a lot of cosmic insight here. So I want to introduce Deirdre first. So here we are. First of all, I have to apologize for my pronunciation of your surname. I'm going to do my best. But today with me, I have the incredible Deidre Gubbels. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but she is just so inspiring to me. She's I think we've known each other for maybe a couple of years, 2-3 years, maybe longer, 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's coming up to 3 years
Yeah, I
now.
feel like it's coming up to 3. I love this. And we met online and just found that we have so much in common and really have had this interesting parallel journey recently. But let me give you her background and her details because you need to go follow her immediately on social media. So Deidre is a astrologer, writer, and artist. Her greatest passions in this life are stories, creativity, and diving into the inner workings of people so that she can help them accept and love themselves as they are and find their way walking the brightest path. Deidre believes that every person in this world could live according to their heart's inspirations and their true gifts. If they could do that, we could create a better world in all ways. Astrology for Deidre is the most clear modality to help people in the way that she feels called to. She sees and understands the world and people through the lens of astrology. Though through astrology, we can analyze and then resynthesize. Absolutely. We can see how the parts and the way and the way the parts interact make the whole. Most of all, she loves helping people to be more kind to themselves than the systems in this world teach us from a young age. Living your true potential begins with being kind to yourself, seeing your unique talents for the value they have, and empowering yourself with permission to be who you are. Yes, agreed. Yes, all the things. Welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yay! Oh my gosh, we're gonna have such a juicy conversation. So I think quite a few of the topics that we are covering today, I have not covered in the podcast so far. So we're really like diving in. And I think the fact that we're talking about this and recording this conversation during Taurus season is just so perfect, right? Taurus season, Taurus being an earth sign ruled by the planet Venus. The other sign ruled by Venus is Libra. Of course, if you know me, you know I'm a Libra. So we got a shout out to that as well. But, so you could say I'm Venusian, but Venus as a planet is something that we can all work with and something like the themes, the lessons are deep ones. And I think that especially nowadays with society, politics, economics, everything being so fraught and so divided and so rage inducing. I think some Venus energy is really positive and could be really supportive as we navigate this kind of almost dystopian era that we're living in the modern age.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So anyway, so where should we start? Should we start with Venus in our charts maybe, and then we could go in the different directions that we kind of
Yeah, I
talked
was just thinking as you were
about?
talking that we all have our own Venus essence. We all have Venus in our chart. And I think that connecting with your own specific Venus essence um, will really help you to love yourself the way you are.
Yeah.
Because of course we all have our idealistic view of what really Venusian beings are, you know, the Taurus Venus,
Right.
the Libra Venus, maybe even the Pisces Venus, as Venus is exalted in Pisces.
Mhm.
But Venus goes through the entire zodiac, and an astrologer who doesn't really believe in detrimental placements.
Yeah, same.
So, like for instance, in traditional astrology, your Venus would be in detriment or in fall or whatever it's called.
Yeah. There's
And
called the
I
essential
don't
dignities
believe
for
that.
people. Yeah, for people that are new to astrology, it's called the essential dignities, and it's this
Mm,
kind of categorization
mm,
of different planets in different signs and which ones are,
yeah,
best and which ones are negatively aspected, negatively affected by the sign that they're in. And I agree with you, Deidre.
yeah,
I do not believe in them either.
no,
I feel like I've seen too many charts to believe in them. Like I just don't think that it makes sense. And also it doesn't jive with my worldview because I don't
no.
believe that we would be born with a chart that is like bad.
Exactly. I fully believe that all the placements we have is exactly what our soul chose
Yeah.
to learn to embody in this
Mhm.
life. And we all have the potential to make the best of that, really.
Mhm.
And when it comes to Venus, it's, you know, your Venus is your love essence, your beauty essence, your self-love essence, your value essence. And in all of the 12 signs and on all of the 12 houses, Venus, you know, puts on a different costume
Mhm.
and make sure she owns that costume.
Yes,
And everybody can do that.
definitely. Yeah, there's nothing that says that like Venus in Taurus is better than Venus in
No,
Scorpio. They're just
no,
different. They're just
exactly.
different. Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
And we
Um,
could just end the podcast there, but we have so much more
that's all
to
you need to
say.
know.
That pretty much says it all. But yes, we should let's talk more. So what's your Venus? So where is your Venus
So
in your chart?
my
My
Venus
Venus
is
is
okay. I have an echo. Do you have the echo?
no, I don't have an
Okay,
echo.
good. Oh, it's gone. Good.
Okay, good.
So my Venus is in Gemini in the 10th house. So my Venus is very, very floaty, very airy.
Mhm.
And you know, the cliche view of Venus and Gemini is that she's very flirty there, which
Mhm.
in some days I resonate with that, some days I don't.
Yeah.
But then the 10th house is this very public, very grounded, and very ambitious energy.
Hmm.
And that's tricky for me, the concept of ambition, because Gemini, the way I feel it, is not super ambitious in the traditional sense.
I would agree.
Um,
Hmm.
and in the past year, I've been working with finding out what ambition means to me.
Oh, nice.
So
Perfect
because,
for 2024. Yeah, because it's like 2024 in numerology is an 8 year, so
Mhm.
it's all about like power, money, ambition. Yeah. So this is
And
a
I've
perfect
had to
time.
figure that out before this year. So
Yeah,
I
you have
could
to get ready for
exactly.
get ready with me
Um,
for power and money.
yeah, and what I figured out pretty much right on time for this year is that Gemini ambition is to be empowered and to be allowed to follow whatever interests you in the moment.
Yes.
That's definitely an energy that hasn't been easy for me to embrace
Mhm.
for a big part of my life because it always felt too flighty and not dependable, and
Mhm.
that concept of this year I don't know, crochet strikes my fancy, and next year astrology strikes my fancy, and the next year working at a brewery visitor center strikes my fancy, and then I collect all these hobbies and interests, and for the longest time there was this voice inside of me that kept saying pick a lane.
Right.
And
I remember we
that's
talked about this, yeah, back
yeah.
before when we were looking at your chart. Like, this is not, kind of indulging your interests and being
Mhm.
curious in your
Yes.
career is not celebrated, basically. It's
No,
really
no.
not, it's very anti-patriarchal to do those things. And so
Hmm.
I think you're really an inspiration in that way, to me and to so many people as well, because yeah, the idea that we have to pick a box, we have to pick a lane, we have to only do one thing and niche down for the next, 60
Yes.
years, like that's just doesn't work for everyone. And
No,
the
no.
generic advice, for entrepreneurs, business owners, and also I'm thinking of you as a generator in human design, the
Mm.
generic advice is, yeah, you got to do that. You got to be so specific and never change. Like, and but when we see people with really strong Gemini placements, we know that that just won't help them to thrive. So you've got
No,
to, yeah,
exactly. And
explore.
that's what I've been working on last year to work with that, because in it's not just my Venus in Gemini, my midheaven and north node are there as well,
Yes.
and a whole bunch of smaller goddess asteroids. So Gemini is very clearly an energy that my soul came here to learn to embody. And I just, for some reason, felt became very conscious of that last year,
Mhm.
and I've been really consciously working on accepting and embracing that part of me that just doesn't want to pick a lane, that doesn't want to be hammered down in one street, and the part of me that just wants to float up and go see what's over the hill.
Mhm.
And ever since I've accepted that within myself,
Mhm.
um, now it's much easier for me to make the part of me happy that is very earthy, because I, next to a Gemini stellium, I also have a Taurus stellium, which is
Yes.
just in contrast. And now the Taurus part of me, which is my Mars, my Mercury, and also my Chiron, um, it's like that part of me finally knows what to do uh, to serve my Venus essence.
Mm.
Now the Earth in me knows, like, okay, there's going to be just a stable base where the money comes in, and we'll make sure that there's plenty of room and mental headspace for following all the interests, all the things, whatever strikes my fancy.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, I love that. That makes so much sense. And we mentioned in the beginning that when you work with your Venus in your chart, one of the major themes is self-love and receiving love. And
Yeah.
so that, of course, relates to relationships, which we could mention briefly if we feel like it
Hmm.
as well. But also money. And I think
Right.
people often forget that with Venus is that Venus,
Yes, exactly.
it's like how you just receive in general. So how you receive love
Mhm.
and money, and love and money are very intertwined in our
Yeah.
culture.
Oh, good that you
Love.
mentioned that, because that's I forgot to say that. I wanted to mention that as well. That yes, ever since I embraced that, I just need to be free to explore whatever I find interesting or intriguing, or whatever I want to learn. Because that is also very Gemini. Gemini is just lit up by the learning curve.
Yes.
Um, Ever since I embraced that, the money is all of a sudden coming,
Wow.
and it never used to before.
Yeah.
I it's not in the way that before I thought I had to do it, like start a business and that business has to bring in all my money.
Hmm.
That is just not how it works for Gemini. Gemini Venus apparently is made for multiple streams.
Yes. They like to have their fingers in lots of pots, and
Yeah,
it's like,
eggs in several baskets.
yes, yes, exactly. Like I do this over here, I do this over here, I do.
Hmm.
I love that you've embraced that, and it's
Hmm.
already, rewarding, because
Yes,
that's
yes.
really how it works with astrology. The more that you can embrace your natural, like you say, essence, or I could say energy in your
Hmm.
chart, like the more that things will flow easier for you, and you'll be able to get what you want essentially, like, and live the way
Yeah.
that you feel comfortable. And so
Hmm.
I'd love to hear that. What
Yeah.
about your Venus in relationships? Can you see that like playing out? You don't have to get too specific, but like even yeah, your relationship to yourself. We were talking about sensuality and all these
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, well, last year I did really start on a journey of really forming a loving relationship with myself and my body.
Hmm.
That had been, as for so many women in this world, had been a tricky concept for me. And there were several things, like kind of dominoes falling over, to where within a few months it was very obvious to me that I had to do that work.
Hmm.
Um, I quit using the birth control pill
Oh, yes.
at the end of 2022.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been on that nonstop since I was 16.
Hmm.
And there was this part of me that honestly thought that my crone phase was just around the corner. I
Wow.
felt like, oh my God, I'm hermiting so much. I feel like, the crone phase is
Yeah.
just around the
You're
corner. And there was
retreating
this.
from life.
Exactly,
You're
exactly.
like,
And then there was this part of me that was like, okay, so but since I was 16, I've never experienced my own natural cycle.
mm,
And I don't want to, lose that whole business in my body before experiencing that.
yes.
Um, and so I quit using the pill, and then this whole it was like a veil was lifted from this essential part of energy in me that I'd never been really able to connect with.
Amazing.
And this is not to say that I'm against birth control or
No, no,
whatever. I
no. Yeah,
really
definitely
don't
not.
want to imply that.
Mhm.
I just had no idea that that affected my energy so much. The creative energy that burst free was incredible. I always knew I was creative. I always had a lot of creative energy, but the amount of energy that was released beginning of last year was enormous. And
Amazing.
I started writing, romance writing,
Yes, we'll get to
which,
that. We'll get to that.
yeah, that was the biggest, most intense hyper focus of my entire life. There was like 6 months straight of writing, 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 writing.
Amazing.
And I'm writing like 7 stories simultaneously now
Oh my God, this is the best.
because that is how my brain works.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the other thing was that, the sexual energy that is also in the sacral center, me being a generator, there was also a veil lifted off of that. And that was when I really felt the truth of that in my body,
Mm.
of that in the sacral center, sexual and creative energy and life force energy lives, which
Yes.
was a very interesting experience because I knew that theoretically, but it's very different to feel that in your body.
To experience it. Oh my gosh, I
Hmm.
love
Hmm.
talking about this topic of the sacral because exactly as you say, it is just the energy of creation, and there are
Hmm.
more than one way to create, right? You create
Yeah.
sexually, but you also create just creatively with your imagination, bringing things into being with your hands, creating things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and being able to tap into that in this sacral, I think is such an act of like resistance, rebellion, in a lot of ways
Hmm.
against the structures that try to homogenize us and homogenize
Hmm.
like who we are. To tap
Exactly.
into that and to say, no, I like this, I'm like this, I enjoy this, I'm experimenting, I'm exploring, I'm creating,
Hmm.
like in both an artistic way and a sexual way. Like, of course, they're connected. And I think that Venus is very sacral. Like it's like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
connected, like the planet Venus and what it represents in your astrology, and then working with the sacral chakra or the sacral center in your human design, like that's the work. And
Yes, and Venus,
yeah.
of course, is also your love for beauty,
Mhm.
and is also part of your creativity. And of course, Venus and Gemini would have a love of words. I've always had that.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden, I was creating, words.
with
Um,
words.
and then
Yeah.
there was this part that, of course, I'm 41 now. So last year I was 40. So that
Congratulations.
thank you.
You've reached level 41. I love it. My friend Darius
Right.
always says that. He's like level 41.
Um, but then there's I don't know if you know this, but next to the quitting the pill, where a lot of energy got released.
Mhm.
I'm also in an age where you know hormones change in your body,
Yes.
and to just not beat around the bush, that gives a libido spike.
Mhm.
um, and what was interesting for me was this like almost sexual reawakening,
Amazing.
made me realize that the relationship I had with my body was just not up to holding all that sexual and creative energy.
Mhm.
Um,
It was
and
like incongruous. It was like not
yeah, it
matching
was
up.
just
And then,
boxing all that in, and all that energy was like, no, I want to run free.
yeah.
I want to create, I want to love, I want to connect. And that's where I consciously made the decision to just go on a journey of learning to accept and then love my body exactly as it is.
Mm.
Um, so to speak, flaws and all. I
Mhm.
have my question marks with whether those really are flaws, because
Who decides, right? Who decides? Yeah.
who decides exactly? The standard we live in is so narrow now, but at the same time, it's always changing. The goalposts are always moving, so you can never attain the ideal without drastically changing your body,
Yeah.
which I didn't want to do. I just wanted to love the body that I have, because what we'd always also been talking about, I very much believe that spirituality should be embodied, because our soul chose a human embodied life here on earth. And that means that the body I got for this life is also sacred.
Mm,
And I should stop hiding it. I should stop punishing it. I should stop hating it for something it's not, or for not being something that it should be according to some very narrow standard.
mhm,
And I just went on a journey of not hiding my body anymore.
mhm. That's a
Uh,
mic drop. That's a mic drop right there because like that.
That's it.
Sorry. That I just have to point this out. This is such a mic drop because I love how you're illustrating the journey, like the journey of, you know, looking at the physical, what could be blocking physically, right? So getting off hormonal birth control. I remember when I got off birth control, it was like 2017, 2018. And it was the same. That's the year I started my first business, the year I decided I was leaving corporate, the year I
So interesting.
rebranded, reinvented myself. I decided I was ready for my soulmate, like blah, 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 blah. Like everything. I moved house. I adopted a cat. I moved to a house on my own outside of London. Like it was like this year when suddenly things became clear. And I think when
Mhm.
you prioritize your physical well-being, whatever that means for you, you know, suddenly the paths start to open up. That's when I
Yeah.
discovered astrology as well, was around
Mm.
2017. So it's like all happening at the same time. And I think there was a very kind of Venusian quality to my awakening and also to yours and to anyone
Yeah.
listening. Like this is available, right? This is available and
In us all.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. And you just have to follow the threads. I think there's not one way to do it. You know, you
Exactly.
have to follow the threads. One thing I wanted to mention before we go into, I want to talk more about writing and body and everything as well. Like,
Hmm.
um, as you were talking, I was just remembering how Venus is very earthy. So the planet Venus, you know, if anyone's familiar kind of with the symbolism of astrology, the symbol for the planet is a circle with a line coming down from it. And well, it's the female symbol, right? So the
Hmm.
circle with the line coming down and then a cross. So it looks like a plus sign pointing down. And it's called the cross of matter. You know,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
pointing down towards the earth. And that's all important. That's all symbolic. That's all meaningful.
Yeah.
And it's about grounding the spiritual like meaning in the body and in the earth. And
Hmm.
so everything we're talking about, like embodiment, you know, we can't just keep it. I love how you said spirituality has to be embodied.
Yeah.
We can't just keep it in the mind. We have
Hmm.
to like do it in real life, in real time.
Exactly. Or float up and out and be like, I'm too, I don't know, sensitive for this human world, or, no,
Oh,
you
yeah.
came here in a body because
Mhm.
that's what your soul wants to learn.
Exactly, exactly. Another mic drop. So with the body thing, like this, I've been on a similar kind of parallel journey ever since having a kid. So I had my
I'm
incredible
sure.
son, yeah, in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. I have a Venus in Scorpio in the ninth, which I can talk a little bit about that too. But
Hmm.
for me,
Such
it's
an interesting, juicy placement.
power. Yeah, exactly. So my Venus is about power dynamics because it's Scorpio. So
Uh-huh.
power dynamics, deep transformation, you know, things that need to end so that new things can be birthed. You
Hmm.
know, there's a real kind of phoenix resurrection energy that comes with Scorpio. And
Hmm.
so it's about
And also very much sexual power as
very
well.
sex, yeah. Oh, of course, yes. Kinkiness, you know, and so there's this power play that can come in for people in relationships when they have a Venus in Scorpio. Shout out to my Venus in Scorpio girls, gays, and days out there. So for sure, this is a thing. And it being in the ninth house, like my Venus in Scorpio is also very connected to my view of the world and my beliefs, you know,
Yep.
and so I am someone who loves to like learn, absorb, educate myself. And
Hmm.
my worldviews have really changed since I was a kid. It's been a big shift, you know, in terms
Sure.
of really knowing what I believe now and
Hmm.
letting my mind be open to learning. And so that's part of my love language, is like, transformation, learning, and deeper meaning. Like everything that I do, whether it's the relationship with money or the relationship with love and sexuality, is like always very, very deep. Like for
Yeah,
a
yeah, of
Scorpio,
course.
it's very
And then
deep.
what we also talked about before, that your Venus, your sensuality, your sexuality, your love essence, your beauty essence is spiritual, because the
Yes.
ninth house is also the house of spirituality, and Scorpio is spirituality as well.
Yes, Scorpio is very spiritual, very magical, mystical, like really in tune with the things that we cannot see for sure. And so when coming back to the topic of body, my relationship with my body, I think, is
Okay.
very much colored by the power dynamic that I either accept or reject. And so, growing up, I had, yeah, eating disorders. I engaged in self-harm when I was in my 20s.
Oh.
And yeah, and I
Mhm.
was just very much punishing my body for not being right and not being perfect. And so that like power dynamic of like, you're wrong, I need to control you, I need to punish you, like has totally transformed into a, you're right, thank you for taking care of me, and
Exactly.
now I get to take care of you better. So it's
Hmm.
like this amazing kind of healing that I've had. But I find that I know we want to talk about like photography as well. And
Mm.
visual expression. I find that every time I reach a new level of self-love, confidence, and acceptance, I want to do a photo shoot. I want to change my wardrobe. I want to upgrade my style. I want to be seen. And so there's
Yes. Yeah.
something, yeah, of course this translates to my business, because like this is what I do. I help people with like visibility and identity. But that's my story, is that like when you love yourself deeper, you're not afraid to be seen. You're not afraid to show your body and yourself. And that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I just had a penny drop for myself as well. I know what you mean with the photography. We talked about that. I part of my journey of learning to love my body. For me, it was very much stop hiding my
Yes.
body. I'm a very hermity person. So I'm very comfortable in the hiding.
Mhm.
So I started wearing clothes that don't cover up my body like completely. And I also started taking selfies, mirror selfies, as clumsy as they are, in the very super unprofessional setup that I have in this house,
Yeah, I
which
don't have an SLR camera, but we do
I
our
I don't care. And bit by bit, I started uh, just to first to get used to even images of my face, of my
Yes.
body, and that's also, I think, getting used to something, getting used to seeing something starts making it easier to like it and to then
Yes.
love it.
Yes,
But the penny
exactly.
that just dropped for me is when you said with every stage you reach of
Self-love.
self-love, exactly. You want to do a photo shoot and you want to change your wardrobe. I just realized that last year I started creating clothing for myself.
Yes, you've been
I've
knitting,
always
right?
worked with, yeah,
Or
no,
crochet.
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 uh, I did knitting before, but it was about the knitting, the learning to knit.
Mhm.
But I went back to crochet, which is much feels much more natural for me. It's quicker, and it's more interesting for my ADHD brain because
Nice.
it's quicker, and you know that's a
Yeah.
whole sidetrack again. Uh, oh, and I just remembered something else I wanted to say. But yeah, I'd always worked with yarn and fiber. One of the things I'm an artist in is I'm a fiber artist. But last year I really um, next to buying cute clothes and whatever, I started making clothes for myself, which really express the the quirky weirdo that I am. I
Love
love
it.
color, and I I get a lot of compliments on it, which
I love
Venus and
your
Gemini loves.
No, no, no.
What's
I love your creations. Like everyone needs to go to your social media to see them. I love your creations. And I remember looking at them being like, I want one of those. Like, that's so great.
I can make you one.
Nice.
Oh, and another thing that was really important for my journey is I got the tattoos I always wanted.
Yes. Yes,
That was a very big part of the self-love journey for me. Ever
totally.
since I was a little girl, I've been fascinated with the art of tattooing,
Me
and
too.
I always wanted tattoos, and I never got them because of course, that mind of mine that always flips around that could never settle on anything. Uh,
Yep. Yeah. How do
and
I
that part of
decide
me
what
that
I'm going to
says,
get?
well, you need to know what you want to settle on before you can get something that's permanently on your skin.
Mhm, mhm.
Last year, I finally realized that it doesn't matter that much because I also know myself well enough that once it's on there, I'll love it anyway.
Yeah. Nice.
I want something else, I get another one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just get another one. Like it's fine. Like I got
yeah,
my
and
tattoos in.
it made me love looking at my body as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. No, I feel the same way. Like once you start embracing it, it's almost like you want to decorate it, right?
Yes,
You
because
start,
it's worthy of decoration. It's not
yes,
about,
yes,
putting a gold ring on an ugly creature or whatever.
no,
It's not about obfuscating the body. It's about adorning it, and
yes,
that
yes,
is also very Venusian.
yes. It is very Venusian. Like I know that when I'm having a low day, I know an easy way to make myself feel better is actually to do my makeup and get dressed rather
Hmm.
than
Yeah.
the opposite, which is
Mhm.
what I would always do in the past. And
Yes.
because then you're saying, I care for myself.
So hear you.
I'm
Yeah.
enjoying myself and it's okay. And like, let's
Mhm.
keep it moving. And yeah,
Mhm.
so you love it. You want to decorate it. So good.
Yeah, and I actually got myself a Venus and Gemini tattoo. That's the one I have here.
Is that one?
Um,
Oh, it looks like a
yes,
sigil almost.
yes, yes. So my youngest sibling, who is an artist as well, designed this for me,
It's
and they are
beautiful.
very good at creating symbols. So I asked them to blend the symbol for Gemini and the symbol for Venus together, and they have a friend who is a tattoo artist who specializes in very fine line tattoos.
Yeah.
I had a place over my heart, so this is my permanent self-love spell. So
That's
you can see,
incredible. Yes, for everyone watching the YouTube video, you can see that I've been
yeah,
admiring it. Like I love because I've been thinking about getting a tattoo somewhere more visible, like on my neck.
yeah. It's so,
Yeah.
I'm in the picture now. So you can see there's the Gemini symbol, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
at first we were like, okay, it needs to, be closed because the Gemini symbol, and we were like, that doesn't work. And then my sibling broke up this line and
Yes.
created the Venus in here.
Oh
Um,
my
and it
gosh.
just worked.
That's
And
amazing. That's so creative. I love
so anyone who wants any sigil created for them, go to my sibling.
love that.
I'll
That's a
yeah.
good recommendation because I've been thinking
Mm,
I'm ready for my next tattoo soon. So yeah, love
mhm, mhm.
that. Let's talk about
Yeah.
writing and in
Yes.
this theme of self-expression. I'd love to get
Mhm.
into the romance novel reading and writing that you and I are obsessed with.
Yeah.
Because it's a natural like the pipeline. I would love to do like an analysis at some point of like the pipeline from like kind of like spiritual awakening, cosmic, obsession, romance novels, like craftness, like
It's just, yeah, it's almost like it's a
and then
law,
color
huh?
analysis. I think it's all leading to color analysis, which I'm obsessed with as well.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, so tell me about how you always been a romance reader or
Yes,
or a fantasy reader? Yeah.
I started reading romance probably way too young. So
Yeah, me
my
too.
mom was a very avid reader.
Mhm.
I grew up with a single mom,
Uh-huh.
and the cheap Harlequin. Is that what they're called in
Yes.
US
Yes.
and
I think I
Britain?
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the cheap ones that come out every month, and you can get them at the supermarket back
Yes.
then.
Yeah.
And my mom always bought them. And I think the first two I read, I don't even remember which ones they were, but I snuck them out of her cupboard and read them.
Amazing.
And she found that out pretty quickly and just let me read them, which is
She's like, yeah,
probably
sure. I
very
love
questionable parenting.
I love single moms. Like I love the like just like yes, like I want you to know about the world. Like yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry.
So good.
Yeah, and I was always a little bookworm. But yeah, I started reading romance probably when I was around 8 or 9. Just way too
No,
early.
same. I was reading like, I mean, this is very Venus and Scorpio. I was on the sly reading like erotica at like,
Oh my God, me
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Not when I was 9 though.
No, I was extremely young and I was like, what
Yeah,
is this? Like I was way,
yeah,
way too
exactly.
young, way too early, way too early. But yeah, I
Same.
was just fascinated. And I just feel like this is like so Venus Scorpio and also
Mhm.
Mercury Scorpio. I just like wanted to know everything.
Yeah, I have
But
an eighth house son, so I can
yeah, okay.
relate.
Yeah, me too. Eighth house sun, eighth house sun. Like we
Mhm.
just, you can't stop us from finding out the secrets.
Exactly.
What are people hiding from us? Why don't they want to talk about this?
Yep.
Like,
Whew.
yeah. So I love that so much. So what about fantasy? Because I know you love fantasy as well.
Um, I think I started reading fantasy even earlier, but children's fantasy.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Um, I don't even actually, I can't even backtrack my fantasy journey.
Mm,
Um, I think that those were simultaneous paths,
mm,
really,
mhm.
fantasy and romance. And then, the blending of romance and fantasy. Um,
Romantasy,
a
as we call it
romantasy,
now.
exactly. I think is when the whole YA fantasy romance craze started up. I
Yeah.
that was the golden period for
Oh my
me.
God. Yeah,
I was in my early
2015.
20s,
When
Twilight and everything.
Okay, yeah, actually Twilight was I don't remember the timeline, but I know that 2015 was when I started reading Throne of Glass. That was my first kind of official YA like fantasy that's like popular now. But then I was like into some other thing like Twilight for sure. And then
Mhm, mhm,
Stephanie Meyer wrote The Host. I don't remember the years of those, but I was
mhm.
always really interested in like anything like aliens, fantasy, I love swashbuckling,
Yeah.
tales with princesses and all that kind. I love
I'm
that
very
kind of
into the vampire and werewolf
yes,
creature
yes, yes.
sides of
I
it.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So how did you go from, or how do you kind of see this connected to embodying Venus? And then also the other question would be, how did you realize that you wanted to write it? And yeah,
Yeah, so back when I was getting into that flow of, oh, I'm sure my crone phase is coming up,
yeah.
I was very, for like a year or two, I was very into cozy mysteries,
Oh yeah,
which
nice.
I still love, even though usually they're not spicy enough for me,
Hmm.
because they're all very, very, I don't know, the word is not coming to me in English.
Intellectual? Are they more kind of like
No,
the mystery?
clean. There's probably
Oh.
not even kissing, when
Oh, okay. So
romance is
like not
there.
romantic, like
No, no, exactly. But I love the cozy setting.
Mhm.
Still love that, by the way. And around the end of 2022, I do know when that was. I got back into romance reading again, and I got back into historical romance because back
Oh,
when I
nice.
was a teenager, historical romance was my jam.
That
Uh,
was me too. Me too. Historical romance, and like I
oh
was
my
really
gosh,
into
the bodice
pioneer
rippers.
romance,
Mhm.
which is very American, like pioneer, like being in the Wild West and stuff. I was really into that. But
Oh well, yeah. For me, it was mostly Regency. Very
mm,
cliche, but you know, it's a cliche
no,
for.
I love it. Bridgerton,
I
love
don't
that.
even remember how I got back into it. I think there was this book that crossed my path somewhere on social media, and I was like, oh, I want to read that. And then I got I fell down a whole historical romance rabbit hole again,
Love it.
which you know happens to me all the time. I'm
Mhm.
always of you know periods where I'm very into this or very into that, and I want to read all the things, and
Same.
then somehow I flow into a different category again,
Yeah.
or you know subgenre is a better way of saying that. And then so early 2023 rolled on, and there was the whole, you know, quitting the birth control pill.
Mhm.
And I was still reading historical romance, and I read I think Bombshell by Sarah McLean or McLean. I'm not
Oh,
sure how.
okay. Yeah, I haven't read that. Mm-mm.
Oh, it's that series is so fun.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
if you're into
Right.
historical romance, definitely read that.
Okay.
It's so fun. It's like a feminist. They're it's I think a little later than the Regency period. I think it's when Victoria gets on the throne
Oh, okay.
around that
Yeah.
period. And they're like a group of you know female vigilantes really,
Oh my
and
gosh, this sounds
I
right
love
up
it.
my
It's so fun.
alley.
It's
Okay.
wild and crazy and fun, which is my thing.
Amazing.
Um, so at first, when all this creative energy was bubbling in me, I was thinking, oh, maybe I want to write something like that. And there was
Mhm.
this idea that popped up into my head, which took the spice level up several notches from what I'd been reading. And
It's so good. Like I
I
feel
think
like,
eventually I will read that, but
yeah.
um, I wasn't really getting into the flow with that one. And like a week later, there was this totally different story, which is contemporary romance, that just lodged itself into my brain. And I started writing, and the writing was terrible, just
That's
absolutely
it's gotta
objectively
be terrible.
terrible.
Your first time. Yeah,
But
it's
it's just the words were flowing and the whole story was there, and I couldn't stop.
amazing.
Um, but then there were walking around the main couple that started getting their own stories in my head, and soon there was a second story, and then all of a sudden you know our holiday in Scotland was coming
Yes.
up, and I was getting back into you know my love for Scotland, and a whole different story popped up in my head that was set on a fictional Scottish island. So I started
Okay.
writing that. And
Mhm.
then, of course, the whole group of friends around the main female main character also got their own stories in
Oh
my
my
head.
God, this is perfect.
At some point, I was writing 6 stories, and I was like, oh, of course, this chaotic brain of mine is making me write 6 stories right now.
But you're
And
writing them simultaneously. Normally, people like write
yep,
the one story and then write the
no,
sequels,
that's
right?
not how my brain works. And the funny thing is actually that in the past, whenever I tried writing, there was this you know this earthy this Virgo rising thing in me that likes things to be ordered, and it was always trying to make me write chronologically, you know, from the
Mhm.
beginning to the end of a story, and it never worked for me. And
Mm.
then last year, when you know the inspiration was just like it was like this being that was imposing its will on me, that was not letting me
Yeah,
just stick with one story, and I had to write it. There
yeah.
was no choice.
I
And
love this. This is how art works, right? Like people say,
yeah,
like it's like you just people say, "Oh, how did you come up with this idea?" Da, da, da." It's like, no, no,
I
the
don't
characters
know,
were
just
there, the
was
story
just
was
there.
there, and they were forcing me to write. Like
Mhm,
I had
mhm.
to.
It's just like divine inspiration imposing its will on me.
Yes, that's how I
And
feel
then
about my
the
books.
funniest one is a few months later than that.
Hmm.
I We went to the theater and we saw the new John Wick movie.
Oh, yes.
which
Mhm.
is super random. And then all of a sudden, a story idea clicked for me that was going to be a crossover between the two series I've been writing. So now I'm writing 7 stories.
This is wild. And so Venus and Gemini. So Venus and Gemini. This is so
Mm-hmm.
good. So it's like this awakening, this love of the body, this sensual, like opening, like just completely opened all these creative channels for you.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
also connected, right? It makes sense. It's
Mhm.
also connected. Yeah, you're inspiring me. I have had an idea for a book, which is it's a fantasy with a lot of romance and some spice,
Mhm.
that I have been wanting to write since I got the idea in 2017. And I wrote it down.
God,
I have
write
the
it.
original note like in 2017 when it was 3 in the morning, January like 11th or something, and I woke up and I just had this whole idea, and it's been developing. I put it on the back burner for so many years, but last year, or sort of in the tail end of 2022,
Mhm.
started doing some writing. I did that astrological story game where I had people.
Yes. Oh, that was so fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I wrote some chapters just as drafts, of some of the opening chapters of the book, and it's changing now. It's different now. But
As
I
you do.
guess, yeah, of course. And I had people guess the astrology of the characters. So it's like you just gotta go with it. When the time is right, when you're getting that inspiration, you got to let yourself do it and embody it.
Mhm.
And that book
Mhm.
is getting written at some point. So
It
I
better be.
yeah, it better be. I've been doing research and outlining and world building stuff, and I need to just get started with the writing at some point. This year, that's my goal this year, to like really sit down and start. Because I have a feeling that once I start writing it, I'll just write it straight. Like, but I'm more of a plotter, so I need to do all
Mhm.
the like prep up front. But then we'll get into it.
Yeah, for me, the process is the characters wander into my head and they want to meet,
Mhm.
romance.
Yeah.
And I I just start writing stuff like the meet cute or the first kiss or the
Oh,
spicy
yeah. So
scene
you
and
just write scenes.
see how they connect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. That I wish I could do that. I mean, I've done a little bit of that with some of the scenes, like I've written out the dialogue and things, but I'm just so much more I like plotting. So
Oh, and I'm totally the opposite
I'm
because
enjoying the
I will
process.
have written like 20,000 words and I still don't know what the plot is.
You're more of a Stephen King like style, right? Because he famously is a pantser, like they say plotter and pantser. So he's famously someone who he'll just start writing and then he does a lot of editing later.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I do editing while I'm writing.
Ah,
Yeah. Oh, I'm so messy and chaotic.
I love it. No, but
But ever
it's
since I
gonna
let
have an
myself be
amazing
messy
result.
and chaotic, I've produced more words than the entirety of my life. So
Exactly. And you've got 7 books written. So, it's like, there you go.
they're not completely
Or
written.
sorry,
Oh my
not
God.
completed, but in the process. In
In
process.
process. Very much
In
in process.
process. Yeah. I would love to ask and maybe we'll kind of start to close around this topic, but
Mhm.
I would love to hear your thoughts on the rise of romance as a genre. Now, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I've heard the stats because, obviously us both being in the writing game and also fans, I consume a lot of content on Book Talk and stuff about the publishing industry and how, romance is like a huge percentage of the
Mhm.
publishing industry and always has been like
Yep.
since kind of like the 80s, 90s.
Mhm.
And yet it doesn't get its due. It doesn't get its
Mhm.
respect. It doesn't get its flowers. Because in my view and a lot of people's view, the patriarchy doesn't prioritize what women like and what women enjoy and what they're interested in. But
Exactly.
nevertheless, it's a massive industry, a massive
Yep.
moneymaker. And women's views, reviews, book talk is extremely influential on publishing. So I just wanted to kind of lay the context there for people who are not so familiar with this at the
Yep.
moment. Romance is having a moment. Romance
Mm.
bookshops are opening up in New York, in London, in different places
Oh,
that are
love it.
tailored and help people explore the variety of tastes, because this
Yes.
is something that I think is really healthy and really wonderful, as people get to explore their own sexuality, sensuality, romance, imagination, fantasy, whatever, through the books. And so we have
Mhm.
so many categories. We have
Mhm.
like, categories that are very spicy, you would say, with
Mhm.
lots of like very steamy scenes. We have the wide shoes genre. We have the fated mates. We have Omegaverse starting to become popular now, which used to just be super niche and nobody knew what it was. I knew what it was at 9 years old. But like Omegaverse is now coming in. And then we have what's the one I was thinking? Oh, one of my favorite genres, monster romances. And people are now
Mhm.
realizing how wholesome and sweet and romantic those kinds of books are, which is kind of surprising to a lot of people. There's alien romances like Ice Planet Barbarians that became very
A number of subgenres is just endless.
it's endless. It's endless. So I say all that to say, what's your view on like for someone who is like nervous but wants to start getting into it, how has it like helped you or supported you in your life and your journey?
Well, I think that the romance genre is perfect for how I view life in the world and in general. We've talked about this before. Like, I don't believe in competition, in competing, in having to be the only one doing something. And I think the romance genre is the perfect example of how I always say, um, you are here to be you, and you are you enough. You are good enough just the way you are.
Hmm.
You don't have to be searching for the way you are unique, because you are unique.
Hmm.
And the overlap you have with other people is fine, because that means, they're your tribe. But there's always something unique about you. And I think the romance genre really shows how um, we don't have to compete with each other, because the appetite of a romance reader is endless.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if I find a genre I like,
Hmm.
sure, I reread books, absolutely, but I want to read more of it.
Yes, of
So
course.
if I like this one author, sure, I want to read all their work,
Hmm.
but I also want to read everything else I can find in that genre.
Yes.
So for me, it's a very nice creative world where it's not about being unique or competitive or the best.
Yes.
It's just I always keep thinking about this. I saw this meme once where there was a picture of a person standing with two cakes, and one was this beautifully decorated cake, and one was this simple cake.
Hmm.
And the creator of the simple cake thinks having their cake sitting next to the really beautifully decorated cake, like, oh my God, nobody is going to like my cake.
Oh no.
Whereas when the person wanting to eat cake just thinks, holy shit, two cakes, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly. 2K,
and that
the
is what
more
I
the
really,
merrier. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that is how I view the romance genre. And I also think because the romance genre is so led by women, queer
Yes,
people,
it is. Yeah.
um, it
Mhm.
really shows that there is space for all of us, and we can all make a living and experience art that we like, stories that we like,
Mhm.
without having to compete with each other, without having to be cutthroat,
Mhm.
but by actually supporting each other and
Yeah.
recommending to each other, like, oh, I read this book and you like that book, and you'll love this book as well. and
Yes. Yes.
and I also love how well-known romance writers are always promoting each other's work.
I
Uh,
do love that. Yes, I think that's so nice to see. Yeah, instead of just being like, "Oh, you can only buy from one of us." It's like, "No, no, no. The more the merrier. If you like this, you might like this. If you like this, you might like this."
exactly.
And it's wonderful. I think it's great. I see that on the Reddit forums. Like I recently joined Reddit. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I just wanted to see what was up. And I'm on a lot of like romance book groups, and sometimes the authors come in and they'll talk about other authors that inspire them. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I love how they did this in their series, and I want to do something like that over here. And it's wonderful. And that's the spirit of collaboration, cooperation, and just like we're all here because we're fans of good storytelling. We just
Yes,
like good
exactly.
stories, and everyone can have their own taste. And I think
Yes.
that's really special is about this kind of genre of romantasy, romance, and fantasy is also how it's changed, I think, in the last maybe 10 years, I would say, is that nobody agrees on what is good anymore. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah,
healthy. I think that's better
exactly.
because it
I
used to
very
be
much
that like,
agree.
well, Tolkien is good and nothing else, you know. Like, and now it's like, well, I like cozy fantasy, so I'm going to read Legends and Lattes. We were talking about
Mm-hmm.
that later.
Mm-hmm.
Or I like, you know, a fantasy with no romance, or I like fantasy with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of spice, or I like fantasy
Yeah.
with dragons. And like, you know, it's like, yes, like it's all available and it's all good. And there doesn't need to be some kind of weird hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. So what a rich time we are living in that we
Yes.
have access to all of this wonderfulness that comes out of people's brains.
And people are reconnecting. I think it's a wonderful place of
Mm.
like women and people who are, you know, can feel included in women's groups and women's circles, like can come together and do book clubs. Like the whole book club thing is like massive now, right? And it's like we
Mhm.
can come together and like commune and connect. I ran a book club last year. I'm going to start another one this year. I'll put it on Instagram for anyone who wants to join. But it's so fun to be able to connect with other people just
It
over
is.
something that is enjoyable. And yeah,
Mhm.
we need more.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We do. We
Very
do.
Venus.
Exactly. Exactly.
Pleasure, enjoyment, all the good things. Oh,
Yes.
yes, so good. Okay, we have like I'm loving this conversation. I could go on for another 2 hours, but I want to close us around this discussion of Venus, embodiment, self-love, self-acceptance. Is there anything that you kind of want to leave people with in terms of how they can start working with their Venus or where they can kind of look to begin? Uh, Let me know.
Yeah, when it comes to astrology, I love staying in the basics. I also love all the obscure things like the goddess asteroids and
Oh,
everything.
yes, yes,
Do
yes.
love that. But you know, our Venus essence is a very important part of us. It's our desire,
Mhm.
and we all have Venus. So I would definitely, as boring as this sounds, start with what sign is your Venus in, and what house is your Venus in, and just start seeing like, is your Venus in air, is your Venus in water or fire or earth, but just have a think about what does that sign mean for you, what are its, as we say, low expressions and high expressions, and um, when you relate that to that, Venus is your desire, it's your being, your yin,
Mhm.
and it's the way you relate to beauty, to love, to connection, and yes, with money, values. Um, if you combine that with the sign, that's I think the best place to start.
Mhm.
um you know, the whole thing about aspects and everything, sure,
Yeah.
you can look to that, but for me, the way I've grounded my in my self-love is first and foremost just absolutely accepting what Venus in Gemini means, you know,
Mhm.
that whole part of um it means I have to be able to follow whatever interests me. It means I have to allow myself different streams of income. I
Mhm.
have to accept that if I like felting in 2018, it doesn't mean I will still enjoy it in 2020, but maybe
Yeah.
I'll pick it up again in 2030.
Mhm.
Uh, those things they are very basic, but I think we all have these basic things that our conditioning has talked us out of, um,
Yep.
that we absolutely have to get back to thrive. Um, Even though the way you are meant to thrive and the way you are made to thrive, um, does not correspond with what we've learned, what should make us successful in this world.
hmm
And that is, like I said, it's a very basic, very simple thing, but it's very scary.
Yeah, no, you're so right. You're so right. It's like being willing to accept how you are and maybe even be surprised sometimes about
Mm-hmm.
how you are, and recognizing that that is good and that is right for you, and you don't need to change and you don't need to be anyone else. You just need to discover your what brings you pleasure, what brings you joy,
Yeah.
what how you need to receive love and inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, this year I'm starting to work with my Mars essence. My Mars is in
Mhm.
Taurus.
Ah.
Um, and the reason I've done my Venus work first is because I believe that the desire comes first. The drive to act on those desires comes after.
hmm
So learning to embody your Venus is so important, because then you can teach yourself how your Mars can serve your Venus. That's the work I'm going to start this year. But I absolutely think it's essential to start with your Venus first.
I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you. It's like know what you want, then figure out how you're going to get it. How
Exactly. Your being nature needs to come first before your doing nature
doing.
can make it happen.
Yes, I have three queen archetypes I like to work with: the
Yes.
wise queen, the pleasure queen, the warrior queen. And I like to have the wise queen who kind of sets the priorities first. Then the pleasure queen is like, I want to
Hmm.
enjoy myself. Then the
Yeah.
warrior queen goes out and gets it done. So that's
Hmm.
exactly how it's like,
Yeah.
basically Moon, Venus, Mars. Like that's how
Yeah.
it goes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
that's how we need to live our life. So I love this. This was so interesting. I hope that anyone listening or watching had a great time with us today. We talked about so many different things. I loved it. I think we need to do a follow-up chat at some point, going deeper into books. And yeah, I feel like we could just have a whole kiki just about that. So I would love to have Deidre back on the podcast sometime. But I have to say thank you so much for all of your wisdom, all of your insight. It's been amazing.
Aw.
Tell us, how can people find you, and do you have anything coming
Yeah.
up? Mhm.
Um, so I am just Deidre Dreams on Instagram, and
That's
my website
Diedre, right?
and then
Dreams.
Dreams.
Mhm.
And my website is deidredreams.com. You can book a reading with me.
Yeah.
I We didn't talk about this. I specialize in grief counseling, actually, with when it comes to astrology. I find that a very beautiful combination. I also like working with people's creative potential. But the basis of my work is helping people understand what they're like, how they are, who they are, and that they're perfect just the way they are.
Mhm.
And they don't need to change themselves. They just have to learn to be who they are.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can book a reading with me. And I don't have anything specific coming up. I am marinating on what we've been talking about. So
Yes,
maybe doing a retreat together,
me
or
too. I want us to do a retreat. Yeah, I have so
um,
many ideas.
yeah,
So that's percolating, everyone. Watch this space.
yes. Yes. And then I'm just being my weird self on Instagram, and sometimes I talk about books, sometimes I talk about what I've been creating. Sometimes I'm just rambling about stuff.
Perfect.
And of course, I talk about my writing as well, which is very chaotic, but that's the way I am.
It's always fun, always interesting, always going to learn something new. I love it in Deidre's world. Thank you so much. This has been such a joy. Thank you to everyone
Thank you.
here. Check out Deidre's work. Check out, we've got some courses coming up. If you're listening to this around May, June 2024, we've got some astrology courses, human design courses coming up. Check all of that out if you're interested in going deeper and learning more. And I hope that you all have an incredibly beautiful rest of your day, because around here we study the stars so that we realize that we are one. So we will see you next time. Bye-bye.